1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue Podcast Soundcheck Q&A. Monday Show Live. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue Podcast Soundcheck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hello and welcome to the Royal Blue Podcast. It's the Monday show. We are live and I am your host, Ian Croll. Joining me in the Royal Blue studio today to talk all things Everton, we have Gav Buckland and Paul Wheelock. First off, Gav, how are things? All good?
Fine, just waiting for my book to launch. I've got to get that in, haven't I?
You certainly have.
Yeah,
Every plug is vital.
Yeah. So, out next week, so looking forward to that. Done a few interviews and stuff.
Good stuff. And you are going to be a busy man on the Royal Blue Podcast this week because obviously you're on today's show, but you're also going to be recording the podcast with Chris, a show dedicated to your book.
Yeah. The end, Everton 1985 to 94. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are recording that on Wednesday. I haven't got an official date or time that we're going to put that out, but it will be within the next week or two. We're going to find a good slot for it. And just a reminder to everyone, what is the period that it covers in from 1984?
85 to 94.
85 to 94.
Yeah, so it's the post Rotterdam era to just after the Wimbledon game.
So a lot of ups and downs, I assume?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this last week. You find that a lot of downs are just recurring. You talk about the same things that we've spoken about on the Royal Blue Podcast for the last couple of years, you know. Yeah. And that's the thing. The thing when you write history books about football is there's nothing new. It's just the same stuff regurgitated over and over again at various time cycles. So yeah, it'll be interesting to speak to Chris just to try and align. It's one of Sean Dyche's words, that isn't it? Early 90s stuff to where we are now. That type of thing. It's very similar.
And we've got a link. We need to get that in the podcast.
You need to do it. Yeah, you can get the book on all the usual outlets, and unlike previous books, it's in softback as well, which is gives people a bit more choice.
Good stuff. Paul, how are things? All good? It's a bit of a rare appearance on the pod for you, but obviously good to have you on. I can't remember the last time you came on.
No, a pleasure to be on as always. Yeah, all good. Yeah, weekend without Everton. I think we were quite happy to have a little break, weren't we? But looking forward to the Brentford game on Saturday.
Have you been coping so far then with the season?
Me and Matt was saying, Matt Jones has obviously been on the pod before as well. It's been a bit boring. I think lately. Really? I think that I've probably been nice there.
I think I'm boring in the same sentence.
Yeah,
well.
I think that's where I'm at with us at the moment. I'm not. I am looking forward to the game at the weekend, but given it's Goodison's last season, I think we all should be looking forward to every game we go there. And I don't think
on the pitch boring, off the pitch still interesting though.
Off the pitch is interesting. I think we're just waiting, aren't we, for the takeover to happen? And I think once that happens, it lifts that cloud over, and hopefully it helps the on the pitch. But at the moment, we're ticking along, aren't we? Not losing many, but not winning any.
So waiting for the takeover to happen, but waiting for the season to end maybe at the same time as well.
Yeah. Don't want to wish it away.
Let's hope that's not the same time scale, by the way.
Okay, well, today's agenda, it is a slight change of pace. It's the international break, obviously, so Everton and Premier League football return later this week. Everton, of course, are home to Brentford on Saturday. For this show, though, we thought we'd do what worked well in the last international break. We're going to do a live Q&A. So where you, the viewers, you, the listeners, send in the questions. We've already put some questions, or we've already put a shout out for some questions, and we've already got some in, but we are live. So I guess it's important that you send in and contribute to today's stream. Basically just doing my job for me. I've been up the wall today, this morning, as the lads know. But yeah, just, interact, get involved. We've already got some questions coming in, which is good to see. And I'll put them to the lads. So please ask us anything. I mean, Everton related, non-Everton related, hit us with it. A couple of plugs, excuse me, to start off with. As always, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. Quick word on Wednesday's live show. We've got Reach Businesses of Football writer Dave Powell coming into the studio, so he'll be doing a Q&A session with myself, probably be talking about stuff like Dan Friedkin, John Texter and Leon. the compensation case, and plenty more. So that should be around 11:30 live on the Royal Blue YouTube channel, and of course it'll be available on all Royal Blue audio platforms. Hopefully be a good one. Okay, final plug, a reminder, we've just been speaking about it there. The Kevin Sheedy interview that Chris Beasley did as part of our Goodison Park My Home series. It came out Friday. It's been really well received. It's been sat at the top of the Royal Blue YouTube channel. Pride of place, please give it a watch, give it a listen if you haven't already. Which kind of really brings me on to nicely onto the first question. Once this was published, this video and the podcast, there was somewhat of a debate online about who was Everton's greatest left foot.
Oh, right,
and
yeah.
you got involved, Gav.
Yeah,
you got
absolutely.
Involved.
That's an interesting question.
So I'm going to ask both of you. I'm sure we'll come with pretty same answers, but I did put a poll out on the Royal Blue YouTube channel community page, and I'll give you the results now. So obviously, I'm restricted in how many players I can include in this poll. So we had Billy Anetanov, Leighton Baines, Kevin Sheedy, and Andy Hinchcliffe. I mean, you could have had plenty more. Obviously, James Rodriguez, and there was a couple dating back to the 60s.
Lukaku got mentioned.
Got mentioned as
absolutely.
Well. But I did say, if you wanted to comment, if you wanted to vote, comment other. And it was well received. But Kevin Sheedy so far is winning, or won, whatever way you want to look at it. 64% of the vote he received. So, would you go along with that, guys?
Oh, absolutely.
Best left foot in Everton history?
Absolutely. I was saying of the players I've seen, let's go back to like the early 70s. Definitely. I tell you what, he's got the harder shot though, Billy Anetanov.
Oh, he was a powerhouse.
I tell you what, when he hit the ball, it stayed it, didn't it? He
did.
certainly got the hardest shot I've ever seen of any Everton player. I mean, that goal, it was at Wolves, the 3-0 in 2011. I don't think I've ever seen a shot it so hard, but yeah, I think the difference between Baines and Sheedy is Kevin had a little bit more finesse.
Okay.
In terms of, and I he's playing more up front as well, so you got more chances of scoring from different positions and stuff. A bit more finesse, a little bit more variety with his left foot. And Baines, obviously, we're not comparing like really. Baines' left foot was excellent as well, and Kevin all day long. His career, well, he said afterwards. I know Bees mentioned it. If every Everton player could put out like a video of their best moments in an Everton shirt in terms of goals and assists, then Kevin's would be the best. And from I've seen the best by some distance. And Kevin rightfully best left foot in Everton history. But we also had the conversation about the best left back in Everton history on the back of that, didn't we? That was another conversation.
I think a couple of people started talking about that, didn't they?
Yeah. Ray Wilson all day long.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. World Cup winner.
Someone said he didn't score a goal for Everton though.
No, he didn't. It's fullbacks have changed. I mean, we spoke about this in the thread because when you talk about all-time great players, or the greatest 11, the hardest place on the pitch to judge is fullbacks, because that's the role that's changed so much over the years. I mean, the Ray Wilson, when he was playing left back, it was a different role to what it had been 20 years before, and that's in the 60s. So it's very difficult to judge different people, because when you could say, I mean, the one that probably applies to is probably Pat van der Nauw, who was a terrific left back. Well, left back, but Van den Hauw for me was a centre half playing left back. He was a terrific player, Van den Hauw. That whole psychopath thing got in the way of him being a top player. And Pat of his time had all the attributes for being a full-back. He was hard, you get stuck in, you could still use the ball, but that's not what you need from a full-back in the modern era. So compare them to Leighton Baines. You're not going to get up and down the wing, cross at a pace, all that type of stuff. Think of the relationship Baines had with Pienaar. At the same time, Leighton was certainly not strong enough defensively to play in the mid-80s. Did Baines have the quality to play in the title-winning team? I don't think he did. Still great going forward. But Pat certainly did, and Ray had the quality to play in the World Cup winning team at the age of 31. I mean, Ray came to the club at 29. And he's undoubtedly the best left back in the club's history, because that's how you judge him, isn't it? Ultimately, with Ray is Are those players who played in that position good enough to play in the World Cup winning team? No. Leighton certainly not. Pat certainly not. Ray Wilson certainly, and he played in 62. Benny's probably more at his peak, but fantastic player, Ray Wilson. And undoubtedly the club's left back, Grace's full back, never mind left back, and right up there in the club's top players, and he didn't come to the club till he was 29. It's Everton. But yeah, the left foot though, it's Sheedy all day long.
Is that the same for you, Paul? I mean, you were just talking on air there, you're saying you probably missed his best years.
Yeah, I think, like I say, my first game was 87, but I was very young then, and then I seen him obviously for the next 4 years was he there for? Did he leave for Newcastle in 91?
92,
92.
Yeah.
So I still remember, obviously, one of the most famous goals, I remember him scoring for Ireland against England at the 90 World Cup. Yeah. But yeah, like Baines is probably more of my generation, but being the Everton fanatic that I have, and I'm growing up in the 80s and then early 90s, obviously, I've seen most, if not all, of Sheedy's goals. So, yeah, I would go with Sheedy as well. Like, yeah, absolutely brilliant left foot and part of one of our best ever teams, if not the best ever team. So, yeah, go with him.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was interesting. So, just one final thing is he said, and talk about this in the book, his best season for Everton was not out wide left. It was playing centre mid in 1986-87, and Kevin had the reputation not necessarily being the toughest and hardest player, but he showed that season he could stick his foot in, and he gave us something in 86-87, that flair in the middle of the pitch that we didn't have 2 years before, and that's why midway through that season he played the best football I've ever seen Everton team play. Not in 84-85, it was 86-87.
I found it interesting that he said Howard just let him express himself. Even if he was going to make a mistake, he knew that it would be one, maybe two mistakes, but he knew that he'd have a cutting edge at some point. He'd be able to find that goal, he'd be able to find an assist, a pass. Whereas, obviously, when Howard left, I think maybe when Colin Harvey came in, he wasn't critical of Colin in any way. He just said, Colin wanted him to focus a little bit more on his defensive work.
Well, yeah, and he didn't want to play him in the middle. He wanted to play him left, and I think both people have said this publicly about the relationship was difficult for that reason. Kevin wanted to play him one side in the middle, Colin wanted him out left, and I think probably Kevin, like a few of the players in the mid-80s, would have been better leaving a couple of years earlier, to be fair, but he was an outstanding player. There's a little bit of, I'm not going to compare him as a player to McNeil, because I think they're different players, but you get the impression that Dyche will bring back McNeil, and he has done, hasn't he? But he's played him where he's not really been fit. But he knows what he brings to the team. And I think that Howard said that publicly about Kevin Sheedy, that he brought him back earlier into the team than what he would have done with other players for that reason, because he provided that extra bit of flair and skill that nobody else could do. And I don't think that helped Kevin's injury record, to be fair. And it's similar players in which McNeil and Sheedy, in which the manager regarded them and treated them slightly different to the players in the squad when in terms of selecting them for the team.
I found it interesting, just to probably finish off on this point and slightly change the topic, that you say nothing ever changes in football.
Yeah.
And just back to Billy Anetinov, so I probably butchered his name there, but I remember we had the same debate whether he should be playing on the left or in the middle, and we're having the exact same debate now, whether McNeil should be on the left or in the middle.
Yeah, I think most people out there who show a bit of quality, it's always a point that's made during the career. Trevor Stephen was the same on the right hand side. I mean, Trevor ended up playing in the middle for a bit and did so for Rangers, and I think if you often think sometimes that the quality is wasted. Mm-hmm. Out wide, where the ball's always passed to them. They can't go and hunt for the ball, but in the middle where they can hunt for the ball a little bit more and get onto it, have more possession. Sometimes you've got players with flair, you want that.
Okay, well, we have got a couple of good questions coming in now, but before we get to the questions, I guess, Paul, because this is probably the first or second time you've been on the pod this season, just what have you made of it, the season so far? And I guess we're going to be going now into a really, really tough period. I think it's certainly a winnable game against Brentford, but the pressure is probably kind of on Sean Dyche and the team this week to get a result ahead of United, Wolves, Liverpool, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it has been quite disappointing season so far, given the nature of the opposition who we've played and given the momentum we had at the end of last season with those 5 straight wins. And I don't think anyone any of us were expecting maybe a top 8 finish, but we were probably expecting a lot more points than what we've got currently. And I think, those four defeats at the start of the season on the run really knocks us, didn't they? And I know things have improved since, but as I said earlier, it's just not the most exciting watch at the moment, and we're not asking for, as I say, for pushing for European football. I don't know one Evertonian who thought that would be the case this season, but I think we should be expecting more, because I know Brentford was a miss at the start of the season. So then there are mitigating circumstances for some of the results, like, I think I was on a podcast around the time after the Bournemouth game, and in hindsight, we were talking about whether Dyche should have made a change earlier, but still, as professional footballers, they should have saw that game out, and who knows how the season would have panned out if we would have won that game. Maybe we would have had a lot more points than what we've done. But I've been not a backer of Dyche, but I think in his first season, he did the job, what was needed to keep us up. And the second season, as Chris writes a lot of times in his columns or his articles, the points were comparable to Brighton last season, and he deserves all the credit, and the players deserve all the credit. But that is the standard they've set themselves, and at the moment I think we're dipping below those standards. Looking to the run of games, the next 2 home games are really, really important, aren't they, against Brentford and Wolves. But this is Goodison, and it is the last season at Goodison, and Liverpool come in, and then it was Chelsea coming on the Sunday, isn't there? There's some big home games, and we've proven over the years, and we've proven last season, we can take points off, probably the best teams in the Premier League. So we've got to stay positive, but I think I would like a bit more of a proactive approach at home. I've got to be honest with you, certainly starting Saturday. I think Brentford are a good team, got a lot of time for the manager and a lot of their players, but I think we've got to try and have a go with them on Saturday and try and get the fans excited again, really.
Poor away record Brentford, haven't they?
Yeah.
All the points this season at home, aren't they? And so hopefully that will work for us.
I mean, in a way, it should be the perfect opportunity in that respect, but it's Everton Football Club, and we know how Everton tend to deal with these things.
Just do a little bit more at home, and I've got, dare I say, quality in certain parts of the pitch, and it's a very winnable game. I would say we beat them last year, didn't we, Brentford?
Yeah.
And so it's a very winnable game. I'm not prejudging Friday's pod, but I'd probably say it's stretching into must-win territory, isn't it?
We'll get there. It's not far
We'll get there, yeah. Without prejudging anything that's said on Friday, and a lot can happen in 4 days as well.
Yeah, I mean, God knows what's going to come back from the international break fitness-wise. Yeah. Okay, we're getting a lot of questions on the stream regarding Sean Dyche's future, whether he should still be Everton manager, whether it's the right time to make a decision. We'll come on to that, because we still do need to be respectful over Sean Dyche. He is still the Everton manager, so we need to tread carefully with regards to that. Let's get the all-important question out the way from Emma EFC. Has Ian had his haircut? Ian has had his haircut.
I can't notice, to be fair, fella.
Thursday, I think I got a cut.
Yeah.
So there you go. Okay, let's some questions on Twitter. So, Chuckles C85, Gav, I'll come to you on this one first. On Twitter says, given our both recent long-term managers in Howard Kendall's first stint and David Moyes suffered big blips in their first few seasons, do you think it would be prudent to stick with Sean Dyche, as he inherited a complete mess? Progress is not always linear. I think it's a really good question.
It's a good question. No, it is, yeah. Have you got, you could write a book about that in itself, couldn't you, really?
Yeah, thanks for that.
It goes back, I think, something to what we were saying last week about, Dyche has earned a bit of time, hasn't he, in the job. I think so. To put it out there now, there's no way I think that Dyche should get the bullets at the moment from Everton. Absolutely no way, because he's earned the right, and one defeat in 7, blah blah blah. But I think it's a really good question, and I'm struggling to answer. I don't think so. I don't think so. In that, well, I think the new owners are coming in for a start. If you wanted my, that continuity under Howard and Moyes came under the same same with Philip Carse, obviously, same owners. Philip Carse obviously give Moyes the vote of confidence via the Daily Express in 1983. I can't remember Moyes ever getting a vote of confidence, but certainly in 2004 we finished the season badly and we had a difficult summer. We kept with them, and I don't think there was ever a case with Moyes that he was teetering on the brink ever. Certainly not in 2004. And but it is true that what you're saying is all of a sudden you can kick on. And I suppose with Dyche, what you would say is and goes back to Paul's point, doesn't it? Really, has he shown us enough evidence in front of football in the sense that he can kick on and get us up higher up the table? His record, and he's got a long-term Premier League history, hasn't he? His record is 1.1 points a game. One goal a game. Is that something that's going to kick on? Probably not. At the same time, going back, we did effectively get 48 points last season. That could that have been a launch pad? Probably, but it hasn't happened, has it? I think if you'd have asked me that question in the summer, I'd probably give a different answer. But we've not seen anything this season to show that he can kick on. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean he should be given the bullet. It just effectively means that I think that a new owner will probably be looking into to probably bring a different manager in. And Dyche is on the end of his last year of his contract, isn't he? Really,
everything's kind of going against him in a way.
Against him, and I think a new owner, when they look back, will find it very difficult to offer him a new deal. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad job. He's done a bad job, but he hasn't. And whether he should be, he should be given the bullet now. I don't think that's the case. But it's a good question. But football's changed so much, hasn't it? Even since Moyes, 10 years it has. People are far more trigger happy, aren't they now?
Yeah,
in those days.
Even Moyes talked about in his. You said he was never really under threat, but Moyes did say there was one period. I think it was the season where we were safe with about 6 or 7 games to go, but we ended up finishing.
That was 2003-04. That's what I was talking about. Is they finished fourth from bottom, but they were never a fourth from bottom team. They were sort of mid-table.
But he said he did feel threat from that.
Yeah, and we got beat badly at Man City on the last game of the season, 5-1, and I think there was rumours that a few of the players weren't happy. And we had the difficult summer where they sold Rooney, and then we lost the opening day to Arsenal, but pulled it back and then kicked on. That's a really good question. Really good question.
Paul Gregg, incidentally, you can watch the interview on the Royal Blue podcast with him. He did say he was actively pursuing Moyes to go.
Yeah,
like fucking right to bring up Martin O'Neill in as well. So he's actively said that.
Yeah, Martin had I think I've heard Martin O'Neill talk about that separately on the podcast, that there was interest from Everton at that time because Martin was at Celtic, wasn't he? And I think he for family reasons he wanted to come back to England. And yeah, that's a tremendous. They're all not going to be that hard, by the way.
Well, we're going to stick with that with Paul. I guess Paul on that one. It's not. I think the Chuckles question. It's not just this season; it could be open to next season as well. But there's a lot of questions here with regards to should that Sean Dyche be sacked. Yeah. So I'll just address one now, with your opinion, Paul. So Raymond Malone, be totally honest, should the manager be sacked now? No sitting on the fence answers.
Should the manager be sacked now? This isn't a sitting on the fence answer, but who would sack him? Like, quite simply, until the takeover's done, you can't. Well, you can sack the manager. Sheedy can sack him. He still owns the club. But we've also got the question over the director of football. If Kevin Felwell had like a 2-3 year contract and he felt empowered to be able to go to Sheedy, or if he's speaking to the Friedkins, which I imagine he is, he could say, well, listen, we need to make a change now because he's confident in his own future. But there's a big question mark over Kevin Felwell as well because he's out of contract at the end of the season, isn't he? So it's not. I'm in no way sitting on the fence. If you're asking my opinion, I don't know who could sack him right now. My own opinion, not to sitting on the fence. Everything I've just said on these, first 10-15 minutes about how I feel personally about this season, I still wouldn't sack him right now because of the reasons I've just explained. The takeover needs to go through. Once that happens, if touch wood, the takeover's gone through in December and the form has dipped, that could be the time where you could say, well, listen, we've got an owner in place. There's a structure being put in place in terms of the board. You can make that decision. I just don't think we can make that decision at the moment until the takeover's gone through.
You're looking at compensation packages and everything, aren't you? Who's there to sign that off? No one.
It's the situation we're in as a club, isn't it?
Yeah, who's there to appoint a replacement, isn't it?
We've
covered that before. It's not as easy as what you think, but the sensible thing is just to keep it ticking over at the moment. And it's an interesting one, because when we have these conversations, people say, "Oh, he's only won 7 games since December," which is factually correct. So that's in 32 matches. But he's also drawn in them 32 matches. He's drawn 11 games, so 1-7 to 11. That's over 32 games. That's 32 points, which is a point a game, which is pretty much what he averages in his career. And 32 points in 32 games will keep you up. So even though we've been on a bad run since December, he's sort of maintained around his average points per game as he has done in his career. What he's got though is within that he's got a couple of good runs that have done a bit of heavy lifting, hasn't it? The five home wins at the end of last season within that helped. But I'm sad. I don't think he should be sacked at the moment. But that doesn't necessarily mean there won't be a change in the future if results dip and a new owner comes in.
Okay, you guys have both mentioned the Friedkins there. So Stephen Taylor on Twitter got a question on them. Looking at the Friedkin Group recent managerial appointments at Roma, is there a clear style of play / philosophy that they have chased, or has it been a haphazard way of appointing managers?
That's another good question, isn't it, really?
Well, what can we expect from our next managerial appointments as well?
That's another question.
Well, that was part of...
This is like an exam. Do you have to show workings here, Ian? Yeah. And
not allowed calculators.
Not allowed calculators. Well, there quite obviously isn't a plan, is it? Well, there doesn't appear to be at this moment in time.
With Roma?
Yeah. And, I would say that just appointing Mourinho as manager initially shows you that you haven't got any long-term plans, does it really? Because Mourinho is notoriously now in his career a short-term appointment who, after a couple of years, will lose interest, stroke the dressing room, and stroke games. And I would say now, and the fact that they've gone through another, 2 managers since, they've had a couple of directors of football, they've lost the CEO, who also at one point was also the director of football, indicates that they've made a load of mistakes early on. And as I've said, the benefit of Everton in that is hopefully that they've learned from their mistakes and will do something slightly different at Everton in terms of a longer term strategy. I just wonder whether their buying Everton is their first part of their exit strategy from Roma.
A lot of people saying that, but
yeah, and that's what I would say. But the answer is no. To be honest with you, and Ranieri at 73. Does that pattern of behaviour reflect an ownership that's got a long-term plan and strategy for the club? I doubt it.
It doesn't for me, and I have obviously voiced concerns on the podcast over the past week since these stories have broke of the sackings and Ranieri's appointment. What I will say is they clearly, or from the outside looking in, they don't have too much knowledge of football. The Mourinho appointment, I reckon they've probably said, who can we get in who's going to galvanise straight away, maybe win us a trophy.
Yeah.
You could probably judge that, certainly the first season, as a success. Mm-hmm. We know what Mourinho is like. He just falls out with everyone when he wants to be sacked, and that's the way things go. They then made an appointment of Daniel De Rossi, of a former player. You appease the fans, and I don't really know too much about the third appointment, who has since been sacked. What I will say is about Ranieri, again, it smacks of not having too much knowledge of who's available. But the plan, or the short-term plan, seems to be that he's going to take over the reins, at least to stop them from getting relegated.
Well, he's managed there before, isn't he?
But then he's going to be an advisor, so hopefully he will be able to have knowledge of who to appoint.
It smacks of a little bit of something Everton would do, that. Bring back a former manager who's tried and trusted, which is a bit worrying. And I've not got a problem. I've not got a problem with owners not knowing about football, as long as they can appoint the right people who do know about football. That's the thing, isn't it? That's the key thing. I mean, FSG's knowledge of football was very limited, but what they did was appoint people who knew about football and appointed the right people. And that's the same thing with Everton. It's just another cursory reminder, isn't it, that we were talking about this last Monday, weren't we? Of the millionth example of people who are successful in one business or a number of businesses try to apply the same principles to football or get involved in football, and it doesn't work. And there's a whole host of people that applies to over the years, both here and abroad. And but as long I'm not really too concerned about the Friedkins at Roma, as long as they learn the lessons and do something different at Everton, really. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, like, as you say, you look, we've complained about Sheedy in terms of like the profile of managers we've had during his reign. They've kind of, again, gone from one extreme to the other there, haven't they? Obviously, as you rightly said, Ian, you bring Mourinho in for instant success, don't you? And to be fair to him, I know his reputation's dropped in recent years, but over the course of his career, he's been incredibly successful. And, you know, I'm not saying bring Mourinho into Everton, but if the next manager or Dyche, whoever it is, brings us a trophy, he'll be held as a hero only. So Mourinho did what he was brought there to do, and he was very close to winning a second European trophy as well. But then to go from there to De Rossi and kind of like, and that's fine if that's what they wanted to go for, young manager, club legend, build something. But then the alarm bells did start ringing when they gave him a long-term contract and then sacked him after months in charge, and then, as you say, go for the next guy. And then now it just, as Gav rightly says, it feels like, let's calm everything down, let's get someone the fans like. It's slightly concerning, but can't be worse than Sheedy. It can't be worse than Sheedy. Yeah. And they've clearly got money, but this is the point. They have to learn from the mistakes, and hopefully they're making the mistakes at Roma, and then they come to Everton, and then they realise, right, this is what we've got to get right. And it's off the field now. It's got to be done right off the field.
I mean, if you make them mistakes early on and correct them, then you can get away with it, I think. But it's just that in terms of management bingo, in 4 goes, they've sort of ticked through 3 or 4 different types of managers, haven't they, really? The club former manager, charismatic, big name boss, former player, you know, promising younger coach in 4 appointments.
But also not giving them too much time to get things right.
And
it's the De Rossi one that worries me, because it was a brave call to sack someone like that, because along with Totti, like, he's a modern day legend of the club. But to stake everything on him and then to give up on him so soon, and then they've clearly realised the error of their ways with the person they appointed after that. He was on a hiding to nothing, wasn't he? And it's a way of appeasing the fans, isn't it, Ranieri? Clearly, you know, he's well loved, but I don't know enough about the situation in Roma to completely criticise.
I don't think you need to. On the outside looking in, you've got enough evidence there. Really.
But what you make of what Gav said there, Paul, about maybe because they're coming in to buy Everton and, you know, take the club on, that they'll maybe looking to sell Roma. I know this has not been circulated widely or anything like that, or it's even been muted in the media, but maybe just looking to sell Roma, because I'll be honest with you, there has been a lot of talk in reports of how unhappy the Roma fans are. But I guess if it was the other way around and we had an owner who was then going to buy a club in Italy or wherever, doesn't really matter, I think we'd be a bit like, well, why aren't you putting all your eggs in our basket?
Oh, absolutely. Roma are a huge club. Absolutely huge club, you know, with a storied history like ourselves. Like, so you can actually understand it. But you even, like, I was reading about Serie A the other day, and it's like a really competitive division. I know Roma are struggling, but I think like there's 5 or 6 teams at the top, separated by a couple of points. You know, they seem to kind of changing from the way that we got accustomed to Italian football growing up. I think they're trying to put a lot of emphasis on young players now, so it might be an exciting place to be. And obviously Atalanta were brilliant last year when winning the Europa League with Luckman, but it's the Premier League, isn't it? Like it's the Premier League, not even in terms of, I'm not sure owners can make money now. Well, saying that though, contradict myself there. When FSG do sell up with Liverpool, if FSG sell up with Liverpool, they're going to make an absolute load of money compared to the 300 million it costs to buy the club in the first place. Yeah, the Premier League is the place to be. And Everton, you know, we can get negative and we can get pessimistic, but it should be an exciting time, shouldn't it? Because you drive past the stadium, you see the new photos that got released last week, and it feels like, you know, maybe there could be a new manager. Maybe there could be a new director of football if PSR issues are a thing of the past. New players could be brought in. Feels like there's a chance for the owners really to put the stamp on the football club. Feels like, you know, a line in the sand moment, doesn't it? Without all the changes that are going going to come. So I can understand that. Maybe I don't. Again, I've not got enough knowledge to know if they're going to leave Roma, but I can understand why, given it's the Premier League.
I think also the attraction is the business opportunities in and around the stadium, which have already been mooted, haven't they?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just one to have a look at. And I know there has been murmurs, hasn't there, amongst the Roma supporters about if you buy Everton, the money that you're going to spend on us, you're now going to spend on Everton. So it's that strange multi-club model where the two clubs are like sort of on par with one another.
It's not like Man City.
There's no hierarchy, is there? Really, and that, as I say, that would be, not unrealistic to say. Well, one of them would have to go, wouldn't it? Really, it's just a fascinating bit of our history, isn't it? At the moment, where there's the movable parts are many, and gives us lots of podcast content, doesn't it? Really,
absolutely. So much going to happen over the next month or two, and then beyond as well. Just a reminder, so anything on Friedkin, tune into Wednesday's pod live with me and Dave Powell. I'm sure he'll have plenty to say with regards to any updates on that and what has been reported over the past couple of weeks. Stephen Grady on Facebook said, born a Blue, now living in New Zealand, so can't tune in live. Great show, lads. What's the state of the squad moving into a must-win game against Brentford? Any updates on fitness? I mean, I guess probably too early with regards to that. Team players are still on international break. I know maybe a couple are starting to come back, but I guess if I can maybe just alter Stephen's question slightly, Jared picked up a knock for England, didn't he, over the the course of the past couple of days, which, again, extremely worrying, bit of a concern, but...
Is it?
Yeah.
For Saturday?
Yeah, for Saturday, yeah. Come on, Gav.
No, because I don't think that... No, I'm just saying, say he was missing and Michael Keane came in, I wouldn't say... Jared looked rusty.
It's a concern.
It's a concern. It's a longer term concern, isn't it? Really, rather than a concern for Saturday, isn't it? I suppose.
But it's another injury for Brantwaite, where having a bit of a injury hit season.
And this is the thing we were talking about last season. People saying about like valuing players of 70 million and stuff. About for a young player, you've got to have a bit of mileage under you, haven't you, to become a 70 million pound player. And saying you can't do that in like 6 or 7 months that he was in the first team last year. You've got to do it over a couple of years, because lots of things can happen. And one of them is injuries, and you're seeing that this season, and it's unfortunate for him. And do you know what the other player like that is? And I remember thinking about this talking about Brantwaite, about the dangers of hyping somebody up and then you don't know what's going to happen around the corner. Is Evan Ferguson at Brighton?
Yeah,
he was like, 22, 23. They were talking about him being, £100 million striker, 18, 19, gifted, good build already, a lot of intelligence for a young lad, and it can go wrong quite quickly at that age. I know he's younger than Brantwaite, but it's always the dangers, isn't it? When you start predicting great things for young players, you can have setbacks, and that's the case obviously with Brantwaite this year, isn't it? That the injuries since the summer, 2 or 3 of them, are effectively a setback to him personally and also for the club, because they can't pick him or sell him. And so it's just a reminder that we have to be careful when we speak about young players, about how much they're worth and what they're going to do in the future. That it can go a bit awry for you, and that's the case with Brantwaite. But in terms of Saturday, I'm not going to die on this. I suppose really where it is concerned, we've obviously got these hard run of fixtures, haven't we, from beginning of December, and it would be good to have Brantwaite. He might play on Saturday for all I know, but you want to fit and build up his fitness so he's playing. But yeah, I'll have to wait and see. At least if you Dyche, at least you could say it justifies,
his comments
and his previous selection of him.
I found that weird though, because before the Southampton game or after the Southampton game, I think Dyche explained himself as to why he didn't pick Brantwaite. And he picked Keane and Tarkowski, didn't he? I can't remember it word for word, but I know for a fact he said, well, I stuck with them because they were playing well. There was no mention of Brantwaite having fitness issues or being injured after the fact. Now, when it's all apparent that he has had fitness issues and he has been injured. That's fine. But he did say, well, the reason that he didn't play was because Keane and Tarkowski have played well together. settled back to. But then was it after West Ham, where he was like, well, he said something about the physios said he was ready to play, but Dyche's gut feeling was like, no, he's not ready to play. And I think for me, that's a bit of frustration from Everton fans of mixed messages about why he's selecting the team and inconsistencies.
I think in my past experience of like managers, even though Dyche doesn't play the media game, they are very aware what's written in the papers and what's on the TV, and he will have definitely copped the flack after the Southampton game when he hadn't picked Brentford, and it's his way of, that's what they do, it's his way of kind of going, well, actually, I just want to tell you that I was the one saying to the physios, don't risk him a little bit. And that's what managers, it's self-preservation. Managers do that, and because it's not nice to get the flack, but that's part and parcel of being a Premier League manager.
Ever is economical with the truth about injuries.
It's okay.
They're not going to lie in a press conference. They're not going to say he's fit and he isn't, or he isn't fit and he is. But they're going to be economical with the truth, and they're going to put smoke screens out there, and like that's what Dyche is doing there about Kieran Tarkowski, saying that they're in the team because of that. And there's an element of truth in that, isn't there? But you're not going to turn around and say, "Oh, Brantwaite's not fit," because you don't want to give your opponents an advantage. And I think also as well, what happens then is the next time another player's not fit, or the same question arises, you'd be going, "Well, that time you said Brantwaite wasn't fit. Well, tell us whether this player's fit or not." So there's always a little bit of grey area that managers will use to their advantage and to protect themselves, and not to give another club or their upcoming opponents an advantage too. And I've not got a problem with that. But what it does, people will not misread the situation, will take their own views from that position, but that's the risk you take, and I think managers are quite happy with that, to be fair.
We've had a comment, Ian, don't eat up everywhere that the press conference managers constantly play games in them. I think that's fair enough, and you kind of just alluded to it there. But I think he said two different things, though, about the same topic, and I think Everton fans would rather be taken at face value.
When was the first game he was available for when he was a sub? What was the game previous to Southampton? Was it
Fulham?
Fulham. And I think you can justify not playing Brantwaite when, I know you don't lose. You can kind of go, well, turn around, Keane and Tarkowski have been doing well, which they had been doing in terms of, like, clean sheets. I think Keane's been playing better than Tarkowski personally, but the moment the defeat came at Southampton, he went on the defensive, didn't he? And then all of a sudden we're hearing that, well, he's had a few knocks and we had to be careful with him, which could well be true. But I know where you're coming from, Ian. Why couldn't you have said that earlier? But as Gav said, managers...
They won't say that. They don't have to say it. They won't say it. And every manager ever has done that. Worth pointing out here, by the way, that, of course, what we see on the telly on YouTube every week is not the full press conference, isn't it? Because they have the press conference with the written press afterwards, which tends to be a little bit more challenging and a bit more detailed with the managers. As people, you often hear fans say, they get an easy ride press conference, not with the written press afterwards. They don't have appears. That's embargo. That might appear like at 10:30 on the Friday night. Wherever, where I think there's always a little bit more challenging questions.
Okay, back to some questions then, Paul. David Adderton said, is it time to cut Deli Alli loose? How long can they reasonably give him? Everton FC are not a charity. You spoke quite heavily on this, Gav, but Paul, we'll go with you.
I presume we're not paying him in any way, so in that respect, if we've got no commitment financially towards him, I think given what he's had to speak about since he's been at Everton and the hardship that he's had to get to the point where he is now in his football career, I don't think it's doing any harm by trying to help him get back to full fitness. If I'm speaking completely honestly, I love Deli Alli at Tottenham. Thought he was a wonderful player. I thought when he came to Everton, he looked a shadow of the player he once was. If that's because of things that has happened off the field and injuries, I've complete sympathy for him, and like if we can do anything to help him get back to playing football again, I personally cannot see us having Deli Alli, the player he was at Tottenham, but I think it'd be success given what he's gone through to get his football career back on tracks. If you're asking me personally of whether I'd want to see Deli Alli, I should say, in an Everton shirt, I'm not particularly fussed. I've got to be honest. I'm not particularly fussed by that because I didn't see enough first time round to be excited about.
Yeah, I think it's right. I'm just a little bit unsure about the contract situation. No, he's not under contract, but the longer term
there might be something still
that
in
if you
there?
move to another club, I don't know about if there's a liability to Everton or not. It's just an interesting little aspect to it, and that's maybe why he's still training with us. When actually, I'm not sure. There may be a little bit of residual contract matters there with Tottenham.
Yeah, I mean, you might be right, but I thought they'd all sorted that out. I think there was an agreement in place. We don't know what the agreement is.
It still seems a lot of money to leave on the table from Tottenham's point of view, doesn't it? Like,
so it's just a little bit strange. We're about cut him loose and let him go, but actually we haven't. And does that indicate that there is a little bit there still on the table with Spurs? But who knows?
Who knows? He could have a.
I'm still thinking of the answer to the first question, by the way.
Good questions,
It's risen round in my mind.
It was a good question.
Good questions.
Yeah. That was from Chuckles C85, so yeah, you'll be able to...
Should give a prize to the best question.
Give him a follow on.
There's been Twitter. A few, to be fair.
Yeah, there has been, yeah.
A lot of good questions.
Okay, let's have a look. So, there's a couple of questions on Ndiaye and playing as the number 10. We've had this debate, I guess, but I think Andy Whitty has said, will Dyche be prepared to allow Ndiaye to play number 10 just for 20 minutes, not even asking Dyche to make a sub, just switch them in them with McNeil, which I think you said.
No, you made that point last week, didn't you? Yeah. I think that definitely mean McNeil can play across the front three. Carney, is to move players around. Even in the first half for 20 minutes, I think that's a decent shout.
I think they've got the ability to do it within the three of them. If it's Harrison and Ndiaye and
Lindstrom's played Lindstrom's played through the middle, hasn't he?
I don't think we have to be too rigid in terms of positioning. Like, if one's not working, move them around. Yeah, definitely.
One about Sheedy. I don't think this is really a question, but Sheedy's 35-yard belter at the Dell when the ball gets temporarily stuck in the stanchion is one of the greatest goals in our history. Sheedy had the best left foot in the game at the time, no doubt.
Yeah.
Good question.
The Southampton manager being Chris Nichol, who also scored a 35-yard belter for Everton, against Everton in the 1977 League Cup final for Aston Villa at Old Trafford, when the Aston Villa goalkeeper was John Burridge, and he was the goalkeeper beaten by Kevin Sheedy at the Dell in 1989.
Great knowledge. Great knowledge.
I only said that because it's in my book.
There you go, another plug.
Yeah.
The Blues have said Dyche will never be accepted at Everton. He can't stay after this season.
I think with Dyche, I used to work over in Lancashire for the local paper around there, and obviously did incredibly well for Burnley. I covered Blackburn, so I didn't cover Burnley, so they were big rivals at the time. And even some Burnley fans, they will always love him for what he did. But by the end, I think the relationship had passed its course, kind of thing. And I respect Dyche, but I probably don't love him. And I don't think his football will ever give you that love and passion and kind of get you off your seat. And that, as you said, like that points average, it says it all, doesn't it, kind of thing. I think he's, in many respects, he's been the manager we needed these last couple of seasons, and I just hope this season he could have took us on and become more loved by playing the football, because I think this season's a job audition for him, really. I know he may turn around and go, well, why should I audition for a job that I've kept this club up? First season when they were bottom of the league when I took over, second season unprecedented 2 points deductions, which he's completely right about. But I was hoping to see more from him this season. He'd done the hard work almost, kind of thing. And I know he could probably turn around and go, well, at the start of the season, the takeover wasn't going through.
Do you think sometimes as well with fans as well, you can be a little bit abrasive, Carney? About support on occasions.
Yeah,
at the same time, that's just part of his personality. You don't have to love your manager, do you? No. At the end of the day, you don't. As long as they're doing the job for you, it helps. Obviously, we don't. Supporters and players don't have to love the manager as long as they're doing the job that they're employed to do. But whether that impedes you, in terms of like being given another contract is a different question. But I can see why you say that. Why that definitely goes back to the first question of the Q&A session, isn't it? Really, it's funny, Dyche. We were talking about this on Monday. He doesn't strike me as a manager under pressure, does he? You know, when you see him, does he strike you as a manager under pressure?
Well, I think he knows no one's going to sack him.
Yeah.
And that's that's like a necessarily bad thing on him.
But I think he's just that way anyway, isn't he?
Yeah.
He doesn't give you much, does he? Either way, he's purposeful. Like he does it on purpose. You know, he doesn't give too much away. Either way, that's his style. That's the way he was at Burnley. It's quite. I know I've been at his press conferences at Burnley, and they're quite boring. You know, but he's not doing that because he might be a nice fella away from the pitch. Might be the life and soul, but that's his public persona. And to kind of like come back to the question that was just answered then, like I think I've been a supporter of him when he was appointed and it was him or Bielsa. I love Bielsa's football at Leeds, but I felt at that time Dyche was the right appointment, and what he did at the back end of last season, and he deserves every credit. But I think at the start of the summer, and again you can sympathise with him because we weren't that far along with the takeover process. But when he was talking about we could get in Europe just because it's the last season of Goodison, I didn't want to hear that. Like as I said earlier, I don't think any of us expected European football, but it is the last season at Goodison. So, I just think he could have made a bit more of that. Yeah. Not saying that he's going to turn us into world beaters, but
use it to your advantage.
Yeah, use it. And I just think it's flat, and that's on him. That is on him because, all right, Branthwaite, totally understand missing him at the start of the season. At the moment, there's clearly issues, but there's enough players in that squad to make it a bit more exciting. Yeah, really. I really do think that.
Interesting picking up on one of Paul's points there about Dyche not giving much away in press conferences. That's certainly helped Everton over the last 18 months, hasn't it, in terms of questions? Tell us about the PSR situation, Sean. Tell us about the ownership situation. If you're used to not giving much away in a press conference and used to playing a straight back to questions, that's helped Everton in terms of answering queries, hasn't it? Really, he's not the type of manager to go off on a tangent. He's played a straight bat to them, and that's ultimately helped the club, I think.
Well, I think that's why, like when Texter was doing those quotes, wasn't he, about like will he work with Brazilian players? The club was so quick because probably people who are there and fell well, they're so grateful for Dyche because he's been the front for it all, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And he deserves a lot of credit for that. He really does.
Do you think they were defending him a little bit more there?
Yeah, I think they were. I think they were like, hey, like look at the jobs this fella's done.
Yeah.
But this isn't Burnley.
I think that's what I meant before. Sorry to interrupt. Is about like by being respectful. Do you know what I mean? You might not like him, you might like him, you might not like the way he plays football. Because we've had a comment here, someone saying we don't need to be respectful. It's a point open for discussion, and that's fine. It is a point open for discussion, as in should we sack Sean Dyche, should we keep him? Who could be Everton's next manager? It's all talking points, but I still think you have got to be respectful in that case, and I think you're absolutely spot on. I think after that Texted interview, which wasn't a good look for me, I think the club probably felt forced to come out and defend Sean Dyche a little bit.
Yeah, because I don't think he deserved that. But sadly, this is Everton Football Club, and if he was to leave now or at the end of the season, he would have that respect from the fans from what he's done. If we're still a Premier League club, if he left at the end of the season, we're still a Premier League club. I suppose it's mission accomplished for him. And we've had the takeover, we're moving into the stadium, but at some point the script's got to flip a bit, hasn't it? And he can't just have that. And he said a few times in press conferences, you don't know the half of it, what's gone on behind the scenes. And it's probably true. It probably is true. God knows how he's had to manage with some of the situations he's had to do. But we need something to grab onto as well, if you know what I mean, as supporters.
What did he say? There's enough here to like 2 books about Everton or something he said once, didn't he?
Get in with him.
Yeah. But no, that's a good question, is it? Do supporters need to respect the manager? It's an interesting one, isn't it?
Well, do they?
Depends what the manager's done, I suppose.
Yeah.
That would be if you're just being employed by the club and you've not done anything drastically wrong. I think you have to. I don't think it depends what you mean by respect.
I think what I meant by this whole thing was his position as the manager. I think we know the club at this moment in time aren't going to sack Sean Dyche. No. So I think it's pointless talking about whether he should be sacked or not, or whether who should come in or not. I think it's pointless about who should come in because the Friedkins are going to be taking over in the next couple of weeks. We've got no idea what they're thinking. So you can have these talking points, but you know, it's only really...
You can ask the question, in normal circumstances, does Dyche deserve to be... And I think that's a decent question, and that's for open to debate, isn't it, really? But whether he will or not is a different point entirely.
I think just on that, without sounding out ultimatums, you know, a lot of questions for me will be answered on Saturday against Brentford, against a team who haven't won away from home this season. I just think it's what Paul said before. If a team hasn't won away from home, it means that they're struggling. So don't wait for them to do stuff in the game. Don't go out there and be proactive. Yeah. And it's not. I'm not suggesting we should go all out attack, gung ho, but you know, get the impetus, go for it, go and win that game.
This is Friday's pod.
I know, sorry. Let's quickly move on. Steve Taylor, sorry. Steve Taylor's got a question. PSR related, Gav. Yeah. We're not going to be able to give an update on this, but he's asked, where are we up to with the Premier League v Everton case regarding the way we changed the recording of tax that was unresolved last season by the independent panel?
Well, it's the incest, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've spoke about this, sorry, in the past, and you've been really annoyed, haven't you?
Yeah, this is I'm not going into the account in detail of it. In the PSR, we were deducted whatever it was, 2 points. There was an outstanding issue relating to the treatment of incest payments on the stadium, which I think that they thought was a little bit too technical, needed more information, and so they parked it and said this should be dealt with. If I remember, I can't remember the words entirely from the panel, but it was for the incest of supporters. Everton Football Club and other clubs in the Premier League and the Premier League itself, this should be resolved as a matter of urgency. So when was that? March? Was it something like that? Yeah. And so urgency in terms of the Premier League regulations, everything should have been tied down and completed by the end of May. We're now sort of 8 months down the line, and it's still not being resolved. And the reason for that, of course, is obviously the Premier League's got their entire army of legal staff just dealing with Manchester City. Yeah. But that's still not a great look. When you're not, you're not adhering to your own rules. Haven't told Everton previously, you've not adhered to the rules, and so that's what's happened. Now the question is there's two aspects to it. Is it ever going to happen? Is it just going to be washed away and just forgotten about, which is unfair? But if it does happen, what will be the discussions, because it's quite important because some of this, then there's some retrospective stuff that can happen here, I think, that may impact Everton, as well as future accounting treatment of the stadium loan payments. So it's quite important for us, and for it to be parked, I think it can work for and against us. Obviously it's going to happen late in the day. We might be unprepared for it, but at the same time, our mitigation would be, well, hang on a minute, you've broken your own rules here, you know, and you can't, late in the day, you can't, you're moving the goalposts, aren't you? So I think it's probably favoured us on the balance of probabilities that the delay, and I wonder if there is any energy within the Premier League to actually go to Everton again, because
once City win their case,
it might be all gone then.
And I think also as well, the fact actually that could impact on this year. Maybe the Premier League is looking to see when our accounts come out, is if we have broken PSL rules again, which Kevin Thelworth was pretty confident that we hadn't. But if you know what Everton's saying, what the Premier League say can be two completely different things. Yeah. They might try and wrap it all up in another here and then, possibly. I'm just saying. But the Premier League, I mean, but imagine there'll be several other clubs in similar positions going forward that they're just tied up with at least two cases against Manchester City, which has now become 3. So yeah, I don't know, but it's not surprising it's been parked.
I really love these Q&A podcasts because, some of the questions that we get in are quite surprising and stuff that, you might not even think about yourself. But we have done an hour. We're coming up to an hour, so we'll finish off.
It's been that good. My head's hurting.
Is it? Is that a good thing?
It's good because that shows you that we've been given a lot of good questions that's made you think about a whole range of issues, from Deli Alli to comparing Dyche to Kendall and Moyes, and and how you do press conferences and PSR stuff. So you can't say that no stone's been left unturned here.
Yeah, whole range of topics. So I apologise if we haven't been able to get through every single question on the stream. We certainly got through every single question that was sent in beforehand, so maybe that is the key. Send in your questions.
Can we, if we do a pod on Friday, can we park a few questions till Friday?
I'll have a look. You can,
you
can see.
Just take a screen print of some of the good questions and maybe leave them for Friday as well.
It's a good shout. I've got 2 more questions to finish off then. So Paul, I'll start with you on this one. I can't remember what your prediction was for the start of the season where Everton would finish. Can you remember what you...
I can't remember, but I think I wrote it in the Echo when all the writers had their predictions, and I felt it was around 11th, 12th, mid-table. Similar to where we would have finished last season without the punch deductions.
Okay, my question then for you is, have you changed your prediction based on the past, was it 3 months of the season now? Do you think it's going to be lower? I think it's going to be higher?
It won't be higher. It won't be higher. We are well. I always look at football games like in kind of blocks of games, and I think we're well below par. I think we're probably at least 6 points below where we should be at this stage of the season. And I think it was similar to last season, to be fair, but I thought at the start of last season we were playing a lot better football. And I know Dyche was talking about XG a lot, and the underlying numbers did support his arguments. I remember the Wolves game, the Fulham game. There were so many games where we were just not putting the ball in the back of the net, and I didn't think Dyche was at fault for that, because strikers have got to put the ball in the back of the net. I don't know the underlying numbers now. I'm not completely all into that, but I'm pretty sure there was support that we're not playing as well. I think we're going to need some surprise results coming up before Christmas to be on track for that kind of middle, lower, top half of the bottom half of the table, really. I think
top half of the bottom half of the table.
It was right when he said that.
It was right when itself,
I confused myself, to be honest. I think we've got work to do, to be honest. I really do. And I'm not as confident as I was at the start of the season. I just thought, given the momentum we had with those 5 home wins and the kind of the mood music in the summer about we should be okay PSR wise, I thought we'd be doing better. I've got to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a tough one, isn't it? I think a lot has been made about how he's done well last season, the season before, to keep us open. I know you've alluded to he's got money in the bank, etc. And I think I don't disagree with it. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but I think in the here and now, you're spot on. He's not doing the Dyche things right as what he would normally do. So finish off this question then, Gav. I apologise. It is a tough one. In gut feeling, I guess, will Dyche see out the remainder of the season? Yeah, he will.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Not as tough as I thought it would be.
No. I think that will be. Because I think we'll generate enough points over the 10, 12 games either side of Christmas, and I think what will help is that if the other clubs don't pick up points, it'll be just as much about other clubs' performances, not ours. But I think we'll get enough points to get us over the line. How many points do you think will keep you up? 30. 30 will keep you up this
very
season.
Low, isn't it?
32.
They might have if the takeover goes through in December. And by Christmas time, we were bottom. We'd gone on a really bad run.
Yeah, that's the scenario.
That would be the only scenario where I could see the pressure could be on them to make a judgment, to not appease the fans, but do you know what?
Yeah, make your mark. But then it's the type of, this is another podcast in itself, and it's the type of appointment you make then, though, Paul, isn't it? Because what you do then, just to point someone to the end of the season, or if you want somebody to bring a new
David Moyes,
and Moyes not going to take 5 months.
Well, this is the issue that I've spouted out for weeks since since this issue's come up, since the results haven't been going well.
Just also on the PSR issue, sorry to bore everybody to that here, but a far more pressing issue for us, which will be decided this week, is the dissociated party transactions, with the Manchester City case with the Premier League, about shareholder loans of which Everton have got. So that's money that Sheedy's given to us. They're not measured for interest, unlike if people got loans from a bank from elsewhere, so you've got an advantage. And that was City's case with the Premier League, but one of that actually, it should have any shareholder loan should attract a notional interest at market rates, because you're basically getting free money off your owner, and that was found to be true by the when City's court case, as it were, and there's a vote about that in the Premier League on Friday. The good news for us is the music is that's not going to be done retrospectively. Yeah. So even if they agree to it, the Premier League won't look back at Everton that you've had like so much money off Sheedy. So every year that would have incurred a 5 or 10 million incest charge if you got it privately, and therefore your PSR, overspends as it were. We're going to add that on, and so that means another points deduction. I think the music is that's not going to happen. It's just going to be in future, which is very sensible. But that was one of the concerns when the City case went through, that actually what happens if they apply the rules for associated party transactions retrospectively. It now looks that's not going to be the case, which is good news for Everton and means we avoid a further headache. What it means going forward, though, is a slightly different question. I mean, I think Everton will argue that it's not loans off Sheedy, it's equity he's just given to the club because he's not getting the money back. And it says that in the accounts. So there may be another discussion with the Premier League about that over the next 6 to 12 months.
It's all very complicated, isn't it?
It's very complicated, but that's why that's modern football for you, mate, isn't it, really? It is. In my latest book, I don't know, tell you, I got a book out. About half the book, about like 89 onwards, is off the field stuff.
Is it?
Oh, absolutely. All this type of thing. Premier League, Super League, football finance, investments. It's all about that. It's not you.
Well, go and give it a buy, give it a read.
Yeah.
You'll be able to find it
on all the usual outlets.
Absolutely. Final thoughts then, Paul. I guess Brentford this week, we don't really know injury-wise who's available, etc. But it's a big game, isn't it? Massive.
Yeah, I think it sounds crazy to call it a must-win, but
it sounds
it does because of the run of games we've got coming up, and I just think for Dyche, I think it is because, like, I respect him. We talk about respect. I respect the job he's done for the season half he's been in charge. But for probably, there's been questions. I had major questions after the 6-0 at Chelsea. I'm not gonna lie. I think if someone would have sacked him the next day after the way we went down, I probably wouldn't have shed a tear, to be honest. But I think there is a feeling in the fan base, like, can we see a bit more? And I think it's on him as the manager to show us more on Saturday. I really do. I think it's a big game for him.
Absolutely. Okay, I think we'll finish off there. Plenty to look ahead for this week. As mentioned, Dave Powell is in the studio on Wednesday, and then we'll preview Brentford as a podcast on Friday. But obviously, don't forget to look at the Liverpool Echo website for all the written content as well. Are you going to be in Wednesday on Friday, or is it just a Wednesday now?
I think after my head's hurting at the moment, whether I actually do anything for the rest of the week is up for debate.
Well, you're more than welcome to come in Friday as well.
Yeah, I will be on Friday if that's the case.
Okay, cool. Well, that is all for today's show. Please remember to give us a like and hit the subscribe button. Support is greatly appreciated. I've been Ian Croll, joined by Paul Wheelock and Gav Buckland, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.